orator with good rhetoric who can command the attention of the masses and talk about how wonderful the initiatives that they're taking are, then obviously the opposition can bastardize whatever the fuck you're doing, which they did. Or even, in the case of what Donald Trump is doing here, take credit for it. They could take credit for it, like the insulin price caps. Donald Trump is like, I did that. That's mine. That's my initiative. It's crazy. But let's be real. There is a possible shutdown that is imminent. Okay? We are at the precipice of a government shutdown if the Democrats... There is still a likelihood that the Democrats might cave. Remember, Chuck Schumer... There's always a likelihood that Chuck Schumer will find a way to say, I don't want to fight, Mr. President. I'm so sorry. Thank you for giving money to Israel.
In other countries and $137 in the U.S. And that's coming down now to probably $15 or $18.
You have to check HUD.gov
they'll
real
go
quick.
Up to 18. I think that's pretty much right, Albert. It's not you, but they'll go up to 18 and we'll come down.
This is on the radical left are going to shut down the government and inflict massive pain on the American people unless they get their $1.5 trillion wish list of demands. The Trump administration wants to keep the government open for the American people. Is the shutdown good or bad? There is no world in which the shutdown is good. Obviously, the shutdown is bad. Now, do I believe that the shutdown will be good for the Democrats? It depends. Okay? The shutdown is obviously a crisis, right? You have a lot of workers that are on furlough and none of the government functions work in the way that they normally do. But is it a necessity in times like this? Is it a weapon wielded by the minority party when the administration is engaging in real time with a crippling of all institutions, sicking the military on the people, and taking away a lot of government-funded healthcare away from regular Americans? Absolutely. So, unfortunately, it must be done, right? This is a weapon that the Democrats have in their arsenal, perhaps the most consequential one, and they should have done it in the past as well. I kept repeatedly saying that they have to do this. They have no other tool, right? For the Democrats, their demands are pretty reasonable. Okay? Their demands are pretty reasonable. I think that they could be making even more demands. Like, for example, clawing back some of the ICE funding. Like, demanding that they no longer sic ICE and the American military on the domestic front, and also ensuring that some of the cuts that are going to come for Medicaid do not happen, right? Because the reality of the matter is the big beautiful bill is going to be bring about $800 billion in cuts to Medicaid, right? That's ginormous. That's terrifying for rural hospitals. It's terrifying for Trump's base, ironically enough. And that is one of the demands that the Democrats are making. They want assurances from the Republican Party to not do that. And, of course, the Republicans are literally turning around and lying and saying they have a $1.5 trillion wish list of demands. They want to give everybody transgender. They want to give everybody undocumented migrant. Okay? Because as it stands, in order to avoid a shutdown, to fund the government, they need votes from Democrats. And the Democrats are standing firmly against it. They're saying, we're not going to fund the government unless you listen to some of the reasonable demands we have. Okay? The Republicans, of course, are using this as an opportunity to attack and lie and make shit up, basically, about what the Democrat demands are. They're claiming, as they have done so over and over again, because they've seen this as a very reliable way to galvanize the base, the Democrats are trying to shut the government because they want to give $1.5 trillion to undocumented transgenders. Okay? If you slap transgender and undocumented into your conversation, illegal alien or transgender into your conversation, every Republican seemingly doesn't realize that they're getting robbed blind. Okay? And that's precisely what they're doing. J.D. Vance started doing this already. My fear here is not only is it the appropriate thing for the Democrats to do in order to protect all American citizens right now, because it's the only tool that they have, and make it costly for the the administration to continue the shutdown, because like at the end of the day, they control everything. They control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House. So obviously, when they have full control over the government, like people are understandably going to look at the shutdown and look at the chaos that ensues and blame the administrative party for it, right? So you create a pressure point against the federal government and you force them to listen to the reasonable demands that you're making. The problem is this, when you don't have good communicators that are leading the Democratic Party, when the two leaders of the Democrats is Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, you are not going to be able to guide through the treacherous waters of a government shutdown. And that's what I'm actually worried about. I'm worried that they're going to do the right thing and maybe push for a shutdown. And then instead of using that opportunity to talk about all of the things that this administration is doing so far and what your demands are, they are going to get bullied by a faucet of misinformation coming from the Republican side. Okay? And then they'll somehow find a way to this up as well. What do I mean by this? I mean, yesterday, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer went and talked. He came out and said, it seems like it's the first time Trump has actually heard our demands about, you know, how people are going to lose their health care coverage if this goes through, if this big, beautiful bill goes through, all this stuff, right? Donald Trump came out and said, Hakeem Jeffries is Mexican. And Chuck Schumer wants undocumented illegals to get $1.5 trillion of health care with an AI video. That was what his response was. It's a clown show. It's a goddamn clown show. And it doesn't even feel like the media is equipped to tackle this kind of idiotic sentiment expressed by the administration. At least in like 2016, there was this overall attitude that like what Trump was doing was not fit for the station. What Trump was doing was completely inappropriate. And Republicans had a sense of shame, even like those who secretly loved Donald Trump still exhibited a sense of shame that this was, you know, not dignified, right? The way that Trump was presenting himself was not dignified. They would always say, oh, just don't listen to what he has to say. But, you know, listen to what he's doing. What he's doing is good, but what he has to say is kind of stupid. I don't really like it or whatever, right? That's gone now. They don't even do that nowadays. And in some ways, like, I kind of understand, because how can you address respectability politics when no one has a sense of respect for the office? Trump has been able to almost single-handedly completely erode the dignity of the office by weaponizing the bully pulpit and changing the culture dramatically around like what the expectation is from the bully pulpit, what the expectation is from supposed to be from the presidency. This is true. He has done that. He's done that successfully. Plus, there is no mechanism that exists as it stands against a faucet of misinformation that Republicans always love to present in times of breaking news or whenever they want to present a new hysteria that they must combat. Like, you know, left violence is one of the greatest examples of this. Over and over again, we look at the data, and the data shows it's like right-wingers are responsible for the overwhelming majority of fucking violent incidents in this country and domestic acts of domestic terror. And yet these guys keep saying, no, it's the left. The left is doing violence. The left is doing violence. The left is doing violence over and over again until people are just like, okay, sure, it's the left, I guess. I'm sorry. Please stop.
From 135 or whatever down to 18. I mean, that's a massive number. Remember, I was the one that held a news conference because I lowered drug prices by 1/4%. I think it was 1/8 of 1%, but it was the only one in 28 years that brought drug prices down for the year. But it was a very small number. Now we're talking about, you're going to see one over 1,000%. Look at these numbers. So, and this has a big impact, even on the discussion that we'll have with Chuck Schumer, who was here yesterday, along with a very nice gentleman who I didn't really know. You know who I'm talking about. The two of them came and we had a good discussion, and we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens, but this has a huge impact on that because these numbers are going to bring Medicaid. We talk about Obamacare. Obamacare is a failure. Obamacare is not good. It's not. It's there, but relative to other health care programs, it's in the lower 20%. It's not good. And I asked the Democrat representatives, what do you think about coming up with a better health care? This actually allows you to do that because the cost of prescription medicine is a big, I guess, a very big, more than 50% the cost of what we're talking about. So we might be able to do something like that. This is one of the biggest news conference from a medical standpoint that I think has ever been had by any administration. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I'm curious, where are the other companies other than Pfizer? Are you
roll with us? And I was honored to have Albert be the first. He's done a fantastic job with, as you know, with the COVID. He did a fantastic job with a lot of things. He's a leader. And
yeah, he also, given that Donald Trump's intention is to just like cripple the federal government anyway, he is also saying that he's going to use the shutdown to further slash the government to begin with. But the problem here is that when they did this with Doge, a lot of people reacted negatively to it. So they had to like literally go back and rehire a bunch of these people. It still actually fucked a bunch of things up. But this is simply a threat. Okay? That's all this is. Will he follow through on it? Maybe, but it doesn't matter. We have to fucking keep up the intensity. We have to keep up the pressure to ensure that they go back on this initial assessment where they try to like fire a bunch of federal government employees. So that's another part of the puzzle as well. It's just like they're fucking up everything. There is an asymmetry when you combat right-wingers. Like there is an ease where there's an ease in which you can destroy something. It takes a lot longer and a lot more effort to build certain things as opposed to breaking them, right? It's so easy for Republicans to just say, like, we're firing everybody. Who gives a shit? Fuck you. The hardest part for the Republican side is to actually destroy things that are defensible, like Social Security. People like that. So they have to take a long time to just like slowly but surely cripple these programs with austerity and then eventually develop resentment towards those programs. It takes years and years to successfully do this, right? But ironically enough, as the White House correspondent for Independent Andrew Feinberg says, White House is begging hundreds of office managers fired by Elon Musk Doge to come back to work. So like I'm saying, like these guys are stupid enough to follow through on this, but I don't think they realize how devastating this is for the regular federal government to work. They need these people, right? They need these people. They need people that are responsible to continue working at these regulatory agencies. Like if you fire mad people from the FDA, for example, because you're just horny to cripple the federal government, you're going to have the inevitable consequences that are very damaging. Like you're no longer going to have confidence in the meat that you're purchasing at the grocery store. Like you can't have that. Okay, you can't have that. That's chaotic. And maybe in the short term, it looks fine. It feels fine. But the impact of such decisions will harm the public so dramatically that it'll be pure chaos. The expectation that companies are not going to take advantage of the lack of regulatory control and then refuse to actually keep the same standard of quality in their produce is ridiculous. Of course, they're going to be like, all right, the FDA is not checking this shit anymore. Who cares? We can offer substandard safety protocols now. And then eventually the public will start getting sick.
Pfizer is right at the top. It's there. Eli Lilly has been fantastic also, my friend. And they're all coming in over the next week.
This is why early on I said the Democrats should be talking about Doge and talking about the importance of these regulatory agencies at a time when there is already an unprecedented crisis of finding appropriate jobs, these guys are cutting some of the remaining relatively safe middle-class jobs that exist. This was a great opportunity for a Democratic Party, that a left-flank party, to actually present the dangers of fucking austerity. And they didn't do it. And because they didn't do it for the past 9 months, because they were just quiet about everything, it's quite difficult for them to do it now in the heat of the moment. This is the issue with the crisis that we're facing with bad leadership in the Democratic Party. It is the exact same crisis that we experienced when Brandon was president. If you don't have a decent orator with good rhetoric who can command the attention of the masses and talk about how wonderful the initiatives that they're taking are, then obviously the opposition can bastardize whatever the fuck you're doing, which they did. Or even, in the case of what Donald Trump is doing here, take credit for it. They could take credit for it, like the insulin price caps. Donald Trump is like, I did that. That's mine. That's my initiative. It's crazy.
Making deals with all of them. And I said, if we don't make a deal, then we're going to tariff them an extra 5, 6, 7, 8%, whatever the difference is, and we'll take it that way. So we took away the advantage by the fact that we have tariffs. We took away the advantage that they would have of just saying no, and we couldn't do anything about it. If they do that, what we do is we'd put a tariff on them of an equivalent amount, and we take it that way. And nobody wants to play that game. So they're going to be, they're all going to be good. We didn't have to mention that to Albert. Well, maybe I whispered it to him very slightly. You know, we had to give ourselves a little bit of an advantage. But no, but the tariffs played a big role because they know that's what's going to happen.
President Trump. You mentioned the tariff, the exemption of the 232s, but can you share a timeline for when we can expect the results of that 232 investigation?
Let Howard answer that question, please.
Sure. So while we're negotiating with these companies, we're going to let them play out and finish these negotiations because they are the most important thing to the American people. So we are standing by, helping and working with them. But the driver of the 232 outcomes is our HHS team because, I mean, look what they've accomplished today. So we are on their side helping them, but that is the model that's going to drive.
And you have to understand, Albert's spending $70 billion that he wouldn't be spending because of the tariffs, let's say, and other reasons. I think he liked the winner of November 5th, in all fairness, but because of the tariffs. And that wouldn't happen. He's not going to pay any tariffs because when he moves here, there are no tariffs. So he won't be paying tariffs. That's the beauty of it. If you move here, there are no tariffs. And we have...
I don't know what the fuck RFK is doing here, bro. I don't know what's going on with his blazer. I don't know why he has his one hand inside of his blazer like he's a Vladimir Putin security guard or something.
Over $17 trillion, Albert. You believe these numbers? So Biden had less than $1 trillion for over $17 trillion for essentially 8 months. Pretty amazing.
When will prices come down, Mr. President? When can
Immediately. They're going to start coming down. Drug prices? Well, they'll be starting immediately. Yeah.
Mr. President, can you speak to what impact you think this reduction in drug prices will have on midterms coming up?
I think it's going to have a huge... I said, if we can pull this off before midterms, I've wanted to do it from the beginning, from my first day in first term. And we were doing so well. We had the greatest economy we've ever had. Everything was good. And then we're ready to do this, which is complex and big. It's a big change. But what happened is COVID came. And we focused on COVID. We focused on COVID very hard with Albert, with the other companies, with everybody. Regeneron was a great thing. You know, we did a lot of therapeutics that were fantastic. And so we focused on that. And I said, if I pull this off again, the first thing I'm going to do, and, you know, we've been working on this for 8 months. This is a very big deal. This is a big shock to the system. But it's not as much as I said. They're going to go up. The world is going to go up a little bit. We're going to come down a lot. But now it's fair. We're going to be paying the same thing. Yeah.
President Trump, in your first term, when you cut the price of insulin, Biden later came in and tried to steal credit for that. Do you worry that the Democrats are going to try to steal credit for these historic cuts?
I really appreciate your question because I did. I cut the price of insulin down to $35.
Very good question. You seem like a dapper young lad with a wonderful career ahead of you. What is the question, bro? That's not a question. It's a glaze. That's just that's a dick suck, okay? Half of the people that are in that room are there specifically so that they can be like, Mr. President, you are so sexy and hot today. I love you. Why do you think the Democrats have a crisis of ugly? Why do you think the Democrats are so weak and feeble, Mr. President? Why don't they ever actually... Why don't they actually demand that there's a national holiday to celebrate you, Mr. President? Very good question. Thank you. Fantastic.
And the problem is with many of these things, now in this case it's going to be pretty quick, but oftentimes you'll do something medically because of the process, and it won't be seen for 2 or 3 years. That happened also with, I could say 4 different things. But just if you talk about insulin, so it was 200, 300, 500, and you couldn't get it, and I got it down to 35. And I said, I hope I win the next election, because otherwise whoever wins is going to take credit for it. Well, what happened is we did win the election. We did great. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way from a practical standpoint. And Biden, when I saw him get up and take credit for the $35 and even less insulin, that was 1,000% lower than what it was just previous. Boy, I tell you, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I did the best I could to let them know we did it, because we want to be given credit. But we are the ones that got insulin down to that number. And you're right, they tried to take credit for it. They had nothing to do. In fact, they didn't even know what happened. All of a sudden, the insulin price kicked in at $35. And they asked Biden about it. He had no idea what the hell they were talking about. But after they explained, and they didn't really explain to him because he was not.
By the way, once again, and I told you so a moment, but even the government forcibly reducing the prices of one singular medication for Medicare recipients is such a banger piece of policy that both of these administrations have played football on who's responsible for doing it. Please, I'm begging people to understand that this is perhaps the greatest example of a person that is the greatest example of the success of socialized medicine. Please look at how much both Biden and Donald Trump have tried to take credit back and forth for lowering one fucking price, the price of insulin. Like, wake the fuck up, guys. There is no better indication of how fucking successful a bold agenda in the direction of socialized medicine would look like, how successful that would look like, how popular that would be for every single American. This is it. It blows my mind that people still act as though this is not the case. Oh my God.
Not capable really of understanding it. But when they went out and talked about it, they acted like it was a great feat by Biden. It had nothing to do with him. And it continues, and we'll get it down even further. But insulin was, people weren't taking it, I would imagine. They couldn't take. God bless you, Bobby. I hope I didn't catch COVID just there.
Oh.
Don't you have Paxlovid? What is it? He's got Paxlovid. give me a Paxlovid immediately.
While Nancy Pelosi is ignoring what you're doing for the American people, she's going after your administration for cutting taxpayer-funded health care for illegal aliens. Last night, Nancy Pelosi, she went on NBC last night, dropped a bunch of F-bombs, told Republicans to go F themselves. Has she lost her mind?
Why is this guy talking so much? Who the hell is this guy, bro? Also, why did Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend lose a battle to a beehive or something? What the fuck happened to this guy? I just realized Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, the one who famously yelled at Zelensky about not wearing a suit, looks like absolute shit. Why is he so swollen? It looks like he ate out a beehive, bro. What the hell? What happened to him? He looks like evil Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, what the fuck?
You have done an unbelievable job medically. Just this, if you did nothing else, we've done a lot, but just this, nobody can ever catch this. This is the biggest price reduction times, maybe 10 times, 15 times than has ever been given before. And this is going to have a huge impact. You know, as I said, Obamacare is not a good thing. It's been bad. And I'd like to make it better. I told them, I spoke to A lot of people, a lot of Democrats recently, I said, why don't we change it? We could make Obamacare much better. We could come up with a new system that would be much better, less expensive for the people and better. This is maybe the biggest breakthrough because, when you're talking about the prescription drugs, that's a big part of it. So we're going to look, this is prescription, but we're going to be looking at that. We could come up and through this whole thing, because I don't know, we'll probably have a shutdown because one of the things they want to do is they want to give incredible Medicare, the Cadillac Medicare to illegal immigrants. And what that does is it keeps them coming into our country, and like they do in California. And no country can afford that. No country. And we have the border stopped up. We have it closed. We have nobody for 4 months. Zero people came in. That wasn't me. That's by the authorities who happen to be liberally oriented. But just think of that. We have people offering health care to people all over the world that they can't afford to pay. And that's the Democrats. And what that does is it brings people into the country because they want to come in for the health care. But no country can afford it, and they can't afford it. So we cannot allow them to charge tremendous amounts of money for health care for people that aren't even citizens. And in many cases, they come in from prisons, jails, and mental institutions. And we can't let that happen. So we have a big fight over that. We have a fight over open borders. They still want open borders.
Government shutdown ticker. Oh, my Lord.
We're having a fight over men and women's sports, if you believe it. You would have thought they would have learned.
Where is the fight over this, man? No, you're having a fight with yourself on an issue that is inconsequential, okay? On an issue that is consequential for 1% or less than 1% of the population, of course, but is utterly inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, whichever, if you take the initiative and ban it, which you did. But it seems like it was utterly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, considering that the cost of living crisis is still imminent and is growing and is actually getting worse. Groceries are more expensive now than they ever were at any point under the Brandon leadership. Remember, that was the number one reason why motherfuckers voted for him. Okay, they thought, oh, well, he will bring the grocery prices down. What happened? All he's done is just bar transgender athletes from participating in the NCAA competitions. Like, okay, you did that. Did people's lives get better? No. I can't stand this shit, man. There is no better representation that like all the culture war stuff that these guys, all the culture war battles that these guys fight are simply violent distractions and have been used as a way to make people look the other way on their inability to address the actual crises that people voted for Donald Trump. Like, another great example of this is immigration, right? Donald Trump is talking about, open borders. New. Reuters uncovers that the Trump admin is prosecuting the lowest number of drug trafficking cases in decades. Oh my God. How strange, you might be saying. Maybe it's because Donald Trump is actually actively stopping border crossings from taking place. Nope. That's not the reason. The reason is because the Trump admin has diverted so many law enforcement resources away from drugs to going after random fucking migrants instead. Brad Heath says the number of people charged with breaking federal drug laws dropped to the lowest levels in decades this year after the Trump administration ordered enforcement agencies to focus on deporting immigrants. Okay? More drugs were seized in August 2025 than in August 2024. Fentanyl flow is down, but that's been ongoing for almost 2 years now. Cocaine is coming in as normal. Meth appears to be on the upswing. Lots of drugs are still being seized. There is no evidence that a drop in drugs coming into the U.S. in part because of the overwhelming majority of hard drugs make it into the country at legal ports of entry, or three of which have been impacted by a drop in migration. Something that we said over and over again, by the way, because drugs were not actually being trafficked in the pockets of otherwise law-abiding abuelas that were crossing the fucking border. Drugs were coming in through regular ports and regular points of entry. Okay, that was the Department of Homeland Security's own data. That was the Customs and Border Patrol's own data that showed that reality, for the record. I wonder if there was a fucking political commentator who kept repeating this point over and over again. The notion that like mass deportation was somehow going to, or a more militant response for border crossings was somehow going to magically evaporate the drug trade. I said it to any congressperson that would listen to me. I was like, this is so stupid. Why is nobody talking about that? New for the first time ever, the largest group of people arrested in the interior and detained by ICE are people with no criminal record, by the way. As of yesterday's data release, 40% of those arrested in the interior and detained by ICE had no prior conviction or pending charges. By the way, this doesn't even mean that the people that were being apprehended with prior charges were being apprehended for severe crimes. Make no mistake, trespass or traffic violations, things of that nature are considered prior charges, okay? So they use that to beef up the stats. So if you look at like the actual violent crime apprehension, that number, I'm willing to bet, has not gone up dramatically at all, okay? What is this? Social credit, please stop. Why? As opposed to migrants arrested at the border or an airport and sent to detention. So looking at those arrested by ICE versus Customs and Border Patrol is a proxy for those arrested as a part of the internal enforcement operations. Oh, in the interior means, for people that are wondering what that means, there are interior deportations that are happening in the regular, streets of Los Angeles or the streets of Chicago and places like that, as opposed to the Customs and Border Patrol apprehensions, which happen usually at in or around the border, like the border crossings that you see, or at an airport, for example. CBP apprehends at the airport. Wrong. First, criminal record means a prior arrest or conviction, not having committed a crime for which a person wasn't ever arrested. If it was the latter, nearly every American would have a record. Second, visa overstays, haven't committed a crime. While the latest data does not contain a detailed breakout, we know that historically the majority of people with prior convictions arrested by ICE have low-level misdemeanors or violations. Less than 10% of those detained have violent felonies. Okay? So remember that. Remember that when you're looking at these numbers. So when you look at like prior convictions or pending criminal charges, as opposed to no criminal record whatsoever, even the prior conviction or pending criminal charges are oftentimes, 90% of them are low-level offenses, and only 10% of them are violent criminal offenses. If you look to the actual apprehension and the actual detention or the prosecution, there is no world in which, under the Biden administration, when an undocumented migrant was responsible for a violent or heinous crime, that they just were immediately released because of fucking woke. That's not a thing that ever happened. And yet, for some weird goddamn reason, no fucking Democrat leading up to the election or even before the election ever addressed that reality. No Democrat went up on stage at any. What are these Republicans talking about? You think when someone is a rapist, a serial killer, we just let them go because they're Guatemalan? Like, what are you, fucking stupid? Of course they get prosecuted and apprehended and detained permanently. Depending on the severity of the crime, they are either thrown in prison under the U.S. criminal justice system or sometimes deported if it's not as significant of an offense. This is a crisis of misinformation. This is a crisis of lazy leadership. This is a crisis of scared leadership on the Democratic side. It's very, very frustrating. Being present unlawfully is a civil immigration law violation punishable by possible deportation, not a federal crime punishable by jail. The exception is people previously deported whose presence in the U.S. after illegal reentry is a crime. This is an immigration lawyer having to address all of the regular points of confusion in this circumstance. Phoenix Emoji, thank you for the 36 gifted subs, by the way. Your voluntary contributions in the form of subscriptions and gifted subs to the Piker Broadcasting Service is the only way that you can materially support the Piker Broadcasting Service. The PBS, Piker Broadcasting Service, is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Your voluntary donations in the form of subscriptions, whether they are free with a Twitch Prime or a $6 a month subscription, is the only way that you can support the broadcast. Open Presents, thank you for the 25 gifted subs. And Non-Jade, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Valorant is also gifting 1 gifted sub for every 5 gifted subs in the chat as well. Valorante, Cutie McBiddy, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. Allowing 50 people to now be able to rewind the broadcast. You were going to say no longer see the ads? Caught? Yeah, that's true. I don't run ads anymore, as you guys know. Okay, Jimmy Slammies and M2BTEC. Thank you for the 5. Anyway, the average time for a detained immigration court case has been measured in months for many years. In this case, the data is consistent and has been produced in this format for multiple years. I track it regularly. There's no sign of manipulation. 40% is already scandalously high. The data is from ICE. Until it can be independently verified, there's little reason to believe it's accurate. That data is not available, but one of the main... How many people detained were here legally with papers in the process of getting permanent status? How many were arrested as they were reporting to the court for asylum and other cases? That data is not available, but one of the main reasons we've seen the dramatic spikes in arrests of people with no criminal records is the immigration court arrests and the Los Angeles raids, which you can see reflected in the data around June. Being here illegally is a criminal act, which these fucking idiots repeat over and over again. Aaron Reichlin Melnick says, completely false. And if you don't believe me, here's the Supreme Court saying it. As a general rule, it is not a crime for a removable alien to remain present in the United States. Why? One must ask the question, why? Why is this not considered like some heinous fucking crime? Because this is a crime oftentimes born out of a lack of proper paperwork. The real crime is the government refusing to give these people the proper documentation. These people are not doing anything wrong. Okay? They're not doing anything wrong. It's like getting mad at fucking jaywalkers and saying that they're destroying the social fabric. It's fucking ridiculous. You have to present an argument as to why having these people work inside of the boundaries of the United States is actually bad. No one ever makes that argument beyond a bunch of vague gesturing in the form of, oh, they're destroying the culture or they're parasitic and they're fucking destroying America. It's all just like white nativist bullshit. Okay? Not even remotely, no criminal records stay in the country for your loophole, not even remotely, but what this shows us is that the administration's claim to be focused on the worst of the worst is utter propaganda. In reality, Stephen Miller told ICE to stop focusing on people with criminal convictions and instead hit quotas. This is also true. Sadly, the data doesn't contain how many people detained were here legally with papers. Okay, we already covered that shit too. Anyway, as with many other issues, if that gets relitigated, you're looking at a 6-3 overturn. No, not even remotely likely. In that excerpt, Supreme Court was straightforwardly describing the criminal laws of the United States, not issuing a contested ruling. You're welcome to look through the criminal code. You won't find a general crime of being here unlawfully. Okay? It makes no sense. That is part of the reason why these guys want to make it a heinous crime. They want to elevate it to felony status, for example, as they did in the first Trump administration. The point of contention is that if you want to elevate like illegal crossings or visa overstayings as a felony in and of itself, you have to present an argument as to why visa overstaying or crossing the border illegally, okay, without having the proper paperwork is a severe crime. You can't just like present it and be like, oh, they're breaking the rules. That's a fucking idiotic way to do things, right? Except we're a nation of stupids, and therefore it's obvious that you can kind of get away with doing this kind of silly thing. You can lean into the worst fears of tribalistic people who don't even realize that they're surrounded by people that don't have the proper clearance or the proper authorization to work in this fucking country. Anyway, let's talk about the clock ticking down to the government shutdown, and then we're going to move on to the Pete Hegsbreth and all this other shit that's going on.
Just hours until the midnight deadline, Congress barreling toward government leaders leaving the White House without a deal.
It was a frank and direct discussion with the President of the United States and Republican leaders, but significant and meaningful differences remain.
Democrats refusing to back down, saying they will not vote to fund the government unless Republicans reverse cuts to Medicaid and keep healthcare premiums from rising for some 20.
I mean, this is like the bare minimum, man. This is bare minimum. It's good. It's good that they're actually fighting this fight. But again, this battle will be won or lost depending on how you communicate your discontent. Okay? And I am fearful that these guys are ill-equipped. It would be a tough battle regardless. You could be the most charismatic guy. You could be the Pete Buttigieg, right? Pete Buttigieg could be the leader of the Democratic Party right now, and he's a skillful communicator, regardless of how much I don't like his worldview. He is obviously a skilled communicator, right? Or Gavin Newsom as well. Having said that, it would be even a tough battle for those guys too. Why would it be a tough battle? Because the opposition, the administration, doesn't play by normal rules. They just fucking lie. They'll be like, oh, immigrants. You want to give $17 quintillion to migrants and transgender them. That's why you want to push for this fucking shutdown. How dare you? And then everybody goes, oh, I believe that. They said the key words, okay? They said the key words. And not only are these guys ill-equipped because they're a void of charisma, not only are these guys ill-equipped because they're fearful, but they're ill-equipped in general because it's very hard to combat against the faucet of misinformation that the Republicans present, especially when you don't have an underlying base of established reality that you carefully constructed of after years and years of counter messaging. These guys never actually did the counter messaging that was appropriate at the time when Biden was president or when they were running for office, when they were running in the general election. They never actually did that. They only capitulated to the right-wing framing on these issues. And now we are seeing the consequences. Okay? And what is so frustrating about this is like, I just want the Democrats to literally just say the truth. Okay? I want them to say the fucking truth. Is that too hard? Is that too hard to do? Is that really that crazy of a demand? Just please say the truth. It blows my fucking mind that is like a bridge too far for many in the party at this point. Just be honest. Be honest about the truth. Like, all this stuff that's going on with ICE is built around a hysteria, built around a falsehood that like immigrants were doing all these fucking crimes and whatnot. Okay? That was all bullshit. Just fucking say the truth. It is a very powerful weapon that you have on your side.
Million Americans.
They just wanted to kick the healthcare problem down the road.
Vice President J.D. Vance with this warning.
I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing.
And just hours after that meeting, the president turning to mocking Democratic leadership with an AI-generated video on social media with fabricated and false audio. The video shows an AI version of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries wearing a sombrero and a fake mustache with fabricated audio of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Jeffries writing on X, "Bigotry will get you nowhere. We are not backing down." And this morning, the White House is now threatening to fire not just furlough workers under programs that are, quote, not consistent with the president's priorities. If the government shuts down, as many as 4 million federal employees could go without a paycheck. 2 million troops could be forced to work without pay, leaving military families in limbo. Heather Campbell's husband is a major in the Air Force in Alabama. She worries about making ends meet for their 3 kids.
We're not talking about faceless humans in a faraway office. We're talking about men and women and moms and dads and grandparents and sisters and uncles. And they want to show up and they want to do a good job and they want to be honest, hardworking Americans. And they're getting caught in the middle.
Who will the narrative blame if the government shuts down? Under normal circumstances, it should be the current White House, right? It should be the administration. They control everything, right? But I fear that given the performance of the Democrats right now, I fear that I want them to fight. I want them to fight. I want them to force a compromise, okay? Because these are issues that are incredibly important. What they are trying to defend is people's health care, okay? But I fear that either they will cave, or even if they actually do force a shutdown, that they won't be able to navigate through the information war that is going to take place, as I've already demonstrated that they will just lie and be like, they just want to transgender migrants or whatever the fuck they're saying. And the Democrats will be like, oh, no, we don't want to do that. Well, please stop. I'm so sorry. And then I'm fearful that the broader public sentiment will shift in the direction of Democrats' responsibility because they're so fucking weak. This is why we need better leadership in the Democratic Party right now, okay? Updated to include newly released New York Times, Siena, and Marist polls. Trump and congressional Republicans still starting off shouldering more of the blame by a 14-point margin, though notably, there is a large pox on both of their houses contingent as well, okay? Government shutdown blame, September 2025 publicly released polls show that there is around a 14-point margin on average, okay, that put the responsibility squarely on the shoulders of the Trump and Republicans in Congress. So this spells that people will correctly blame the party in charge for a government shutdown. But that can change. That can change if the Democrats don't message around this, okay? Because this is a narrative battle that will take place, a battle of narratives that will take place. And the Republicans are very quick to just seize, because they're fearful of a shutdown themselves. The Republicans are trying to, on the one hand, claim that the Democrats are doing this for, funding illegals, right? And then on the other hand, they're even saying that they'll take advantage of the shutdown and fire more federal workers, like permanently. No, the fuck they won't, for the record. That is the reason why they're also begging all the fucking regulatory agency members that they fired with the Doge cuts to come back to work right now. So just remember, this is a moment for bravery, okay? This is a moment to exhibit just a shred of fucking courage in the face of this fascist administration doing a whole bunch of fuck shit.
Of this political rhetoric.
Republicans say that Democrats should support funding the government without any strings attached. So today in the Senate, they are going to force a vote on a bill that does not include any of the Democratic demands, but they still need the support of at least 7 Senate Democrats in order to get that bill passed. The bottom line here, Robin, someone has to compromise to avert this shutdown, and neither side is backing down.
It does appear that way, Rachel. All right, thanks to you.
If the government shuts down, talk about being injured at midnight, the impact may be felt at airports all around the country. More than 58,000 TSA employees and 13,000 air traffic controllers would be working without pay. Nobody likes that.
Hopefully I'm going to get the fuck out of here before this happens.
Airport. With more on what flyers can expect. Chris, good morning to you. What can you tell us?
TSA has limited the items that may be carried.
Well, good morning, Gail. We don't expect major disruptions tomorrow or the rest of this week if people show up at an airport like here in Denver. But if this shutdown is measured in weeks, not days, or stretches even longer than that, that's when we need to prepare for the potential of disruptions and delays. And I'm basing that off what we saw play out back in 2018 when we had a 35-day shutdown starting in December. As soon as that first missed paycheck, so think about 2 weeks in, we started to see sick calls from TSA officers really increase at airports across the country. That led to longer lines at checkpoints, so it took people longer to get through security. Some checkpoints had to be closed, and in one case in Miami, they even had to close an entire terminal because there weren't enough TSA officers to staff it. Now, TSA officers are not high-paid government workers, so missing a paycheck can have a profound impact. Air traffic controllers would also work without pay, and in January of 2019, air traffic control sick calls resulted in significant flight disruptions in the New York City area shortly before the shutdown ended. There is a shortage of air traffic controllers. During a shutdown, hiring and training of new hires generally stops. That would slow efforts to get more controllers on the job quickly. Amtrak should operate normally because while it receives federal funds, it is operated as an independent entity. Travelers heading to national parks, they're likely to be in for a disappointment. Most national parks will close to the public during a shutdown. The U.S. Travel Association estimates the cost of a shutdown to the U.S. travel economy to be about $1 billion a week, Nate.
All right, Chris, we'll stay tuned.
We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. And you all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people. We don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. And, we're cutting that.
What this government
I need people to understand that this is false framing. Okay, whenever you hear a Republican or even Democrats do this too, obviously, when they have an initiative, when they want to do something, they present it with false framing. They can't just be like, we want to cut Medicaid so that we give massive tax cuts to the super wealthy, even though that is obviously the point, right? That's the point. That's what they're doing. That's the reason why they're doing this. But obviously, they're not going to present it as that. So just remember when like Donald Trump or the Republicans in general present why they are so forceful on this Medicaid cut, they have to present it as like tackling waste, fraud, and abuse. I famously said something about tackling waste, fraud, and abuse the Republican Party's general lack of interest in tackling waste, fraud, and abuse. When I talked about the famous Florida Republican, not going to say it again, but Rick Scott would be criminally prosecuted if these guys actually cared about waste, fraud, and abuse. If the Republicans truly cared about it, the Republican politicians would actually look to their own ranks on people that have participated in record-breaking waste, fraud, and abuse on the side of Medicare and Medicaid. So, obviously, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. That is clear. And here is perhaps one of the better communicators on the Democratic Party side, explaining as to why they want to force a shutdown potentially if they don't get concessions from the Republican administration.
About is whether Republicans are going to be able to get away with raising health insurance premiums by 75%.
Why haven't you watched the content, Nuke? What is this? Drama guy. Government shutdown imminent. Maybe going to war with Venezuela. And this chatter is a time traveler, I think. I have watched the context, Nuke, at this point. There is a bro, rewind it into spring. Yeah. I don't know if you knew this or not, but not only did I watch it, but I did like an 8-hour response to it. Here it is. There you go. Maybe you were in a coma and you didn't see it, but this was Disarming the Content Nuke Part 1. I went through it for 8 hours, as a matter of fact. Look, and you can go through the different parts of it. I mean, it has 1 million views. I'm trolling. Oh, okay. Well, let's continue.
Yes, 75% on average for 20 million Americans. And in addition to that, throwing 15 million people off the health care they have by making devastating cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And you know what that means? That means, not according to Bernie Sanders, but according to people who have studied the issue, academics, tens of thousands of Americans are going to die unnecessarily. Well, you know what? I am not going to support that. And that is why the Republicans have got to sit down, they've got to negotiate, and they've got to protect the health care needs of the American people.
Mr. President, the next time you have something to say, don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. Say it to my face.
Sexual panther.
Right now,
Nancy Pelosi slams Republicans over Trump's role in looming shutdown. I'm glad that we dusted off. We dusted off the Speaker Emerita, okay? The Grand Wizard of the Democrat rat party, Nancy motherfucking Pelosi, okay? We dusted her off and we brought her back. Seemingly, since Hakeem Jeffries is not doing the job. She uses bad words here. Let's take a look.
It's really important for the American people to recognize that every shutdown we have had has been a Republican shutdown, including this one. This one even more so because they have the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. It's important to note that they do not believe in governance, so a shutdown of government is a...
I'm not even kidding when I say this. She's literally better at 875 years old than Hakeem Jeffries is. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but she is a better communicator than Hakeem Jeffries is. And remember, Hakeem Jeffries was groomed for this position by Nancy fucking Pelosi. Okay? It is crazy. I know it's a pretty low bar, but that's how low the bar is. That's how low the standard is. I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's true.
Victory for them. They love that. Government is shut down. And when they've shut it down in the past, and when we've come back in, many of their leaders have not voted to come back in. So here we are at a place where we should be quite happy about meeting the needs of the American people. Some of the pillars of economic and health security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act. They don't care about that. They never voted for any of that. They never voted for any of that. Medicaid should wither on the vine, they said. Medicaid, put it in a box, tie it in a ribbon, throw it in the deep blue sea.
Do you have confidence that this is actually a real negotiation that is going to happen at the White House later today?
Oh, I have no idea. Well, going into it, let's review what the president has said. What we're talking about is meeting the health care needs of the American people, little babies, moms with breast cancer, dads with a stroke, and all of that. The president has said, I hear what they're saying. It's all unserious and ridiculous. In fact, I've listened to their and I tell them to go themselves.
Goddamn! Can she say that? Pop off, queen. Pop off, queen.
So that's the. I can't believe I use that word. My kids will be shocked. My grandchildren will be further shocked. I'm just quoting the President of the United States. And so I think the leverage springs not from any shared values with him, if that's what he thinks healthcare is about, and yourself, but that it is something that they're hearing from.
Wait, what the fuck? Okay, what? Okay, that is okay, I'm sorry. What the fuck is happening? Someone needs to wash their mouth with soap. Okay? That's crazy. What?
And so I think the leverage springs not from any shared values with him, if that's what he thinks healthcare is about. And yourself. But
is this AI? What the hell? Dark Nancy. Dark Nancy is alive, dude. Unshackle Dark Nancy. She's getting old. She's allowed to say it.
But that it is something that they're hearing from constituents, that they do not want to see the healthcare costs go up.
By the way, she has the same hand thing that Trump has. Everyone is so fucking old in this stupid ass government, man. They're gonna kill all of us. I swear to God. And they don't even care because they're all decaying. They're all like 80 years old. Oh my Lord, man.
Subsidies are not extended. You know, this is so funny because I'm an appropriator, and over the years I've always said, left to their own devices, appropriators can get this job done. They know what the priorities are. They know where you have to negotiate, where you have a difference of opinion, which you must respect, and that it's only the intervention of Donald Trump that is making this difficult.
Some of the questions of the White House press corps, boy, has Nancy Pelosi lost her mind. Here's Steny Hoyer. Hoyer's office is handing these cards out to the House Democrats as they leave their caucus meeting today. OMB Director Russell Vought in a private 2023 speech, we want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they're increasingly viewed as the villains. We want their funding to be shut down. We want to put them in trauma. By the way, the people that he's talking about are people that are in this community, you know, like people that work for the national parks, people that work for the FDA, people that work for the CDC, people that work for the SEC, all of these numerous different government regulatory agencies that work tirelessly to ensure that your meat that you purchase at the grocery store isn't poisoned, that you know when like awful weather incidents are taking place, natural disasters are imminent, for example. Those are the people that they're talking about as like villains, okay? Scientists, the woke nerds, if you will. It's incredible how much we are cooking ourselves, okay? It is incredible. Enton, Mr. Holy Toledo is back. He's going to be talking about, this is a huge blistering opinion from a federal judge. I'm going to get to it in a second. That's a huge deal that just took place. And we'll get to that again. Trump is live again. He never shuts up.
Up the back of his neck, and you would never know it from his personality.
Okay, I don't care about this right now. Let's just continue with this. There's too much going on. If there's anything interesting or unique that Donald Trump talks about coming up, we'll get to it. But did you ever talk about Eric Adams dropping out? No, because there's a million things happening right now that is like Eric Adams dropping out wasn't even that big of a deal. We watched this. Wait, We watched this from 6 hours ago.
All right, a live look at Capitol Hill, where a lot and not a lot is happening right now. Time is quickly running out for lawmakers to come to a compromise and do their jobs to avoid a government shutdown, keep the government funded. This morning, there is still no signs of a deal on the horizon. CNN's Harry Enton is running the numbers on this in a specific way, how one party you see in the numbers is facing more pressure than the others, and that's the Democrats. Why?
Why is it that the Democrats, in my mind, are facing more pressure, those Democratic leaders? And that is because their base thinks that their party leaders are weak. Look at this.
Well, their base knows that the party leaders are weak because the party leaders are weak. And this is a thing that I kept repeating over and over again. At least the Republican base thinks that Trump is awesome. Okay. At least there is like a base at all for the Republican Party. Both of the parties are unpopular. Donald Trump's approval ratings are underwater. Having said that, his own party's base of support still supports him. Democrats don't even have their own party's base of support any longer because of all of the issues that I have been railing about over and over and over again. Meanwhile, liberals have been yelling at me instead of trying to fucking yell at the Democrats alongside their parents who have become radicalized over the course of the past couple of months, demanding that Democratic politicians put their bodies on the fucking line. Meanwhile, you got dumb fuck neoliberals on the internet still trying to relitigate this discourse. There has to be a reason for this. And the reason is not because all the Barbaras and Debras are tuning into the fucking HasanAbi broadcast to develop some sense of discontent towards the Democratic administration. Okay? They're just literally looking at the situation with Donald Trump, the American federal government, Donald Trump destroying the Constitution, spitting on it every day, wiping his fucking ass cheeks with it, and going, where are the Democrats? Why are they not doing anything? Why are they not channeling the discontent that we feel right now? That's it. And in the absence of good leadership from the establishment Democrats, who unironically think that if they just stick around and quietly just wait for this period to go away, that they'll be rewarded in the midterm elections for their inaction. And it's very stupid for them to do so. It's a very stupid decision for them because this is going to lead to, one, more discontent and obviously mass mobilization. And then that mass mobilization is going to be actively stamped out by the administration. They're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to even like make a big fuss about the Constitution being in tatters. Okay. The Republicans are lighting the Constitution on fire, lighting the First Amendment on fire, for example. And there is no guarantee that the Democrats will be rewarded for simply being the opposition party when their own audience doesn't fucking think that they are the actual opposition. That's why they keep saying, you guys suck. You're complicit. You're complicit. You're engaging in an act of appeasement. Anyway, Harry Emden.
Democrats on who has strong leaders. Look at this. 54% say neither party, 54% of Democrats say neither party has strong leaders. Among Republicans, 80% of their base thinks Republicans have strong leaders. Yet among Democrats, just 35% of Democrats say their party has strong leaders. When you add together this 54% with this 11%, we're talking about 2/3 of Democrats who say neither party or Republicans have stronger leaders as compared to just 35% who say their own parties have strong leaders. As I said at the top, weak is how Democrats view their leaders in Washington.
But facing more pressure too, does this suggest, and we'll continue with this, but the question then is, does this suggest that the pressure is for them to cut a deal or to stand against what they think is what Republicans want? That remains kind of the question in and of this. But getting stuff done. Yeah. Who gets stuff done?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the other thing. It's not just that Democrats think that their party leaders are weak. They also think they don't get anything done. I mean, take a look here. Okay, Democrats and who get things done. Again, it's just 50. We get this 50% of Democrats say neither party gets anything done. Just 41% of Democrats say their own party gets stuff done. When you add in this 9% of Democrats who say the Republican Party is more likely to get things done with neither party, we're talking about 3 in 5 Democrats who say neither party or or Republicans are more likely to get things done than the Democratic Party. And again, that is the complete inverse of how Republicans feel, because 77% of Republicans think their own party leaders are likely to get things done.
I wonder why. Perhaps it's because the Republicans have designed a political environment where they do offer some red meat to the base, no matter how silly or inconsequential it might seem, as opposed to the material realities that must be addressed, as opposed to like the economy, right? They don't do the economy shit, but at least they go, oh, we're going to dominate transgenders. We're going to dominate the migrants. So at least for the base of support within the Republican Party, they go, well, it kind of feels like they're doing something. It feels like they're doing some of the things that they promised, and they're relatively happy. It takes a long time for those guys to recognize that their pockets are still hurting, despite in spite of the reality that the Republicans are in charge, right? But that is the reason why they hammer on the trans Tifa narratives. They hammer on the transgender narratives. They hammer on the idea that like undocumented migrants are responsible for a lot of crime and all this shit. That's the reason. It's so that they just keep their base of support together. They recognize that there are radical elements within their base, and they offer them treats. They offer them treats that are, objectively violent for broad swaths of the public, and actually create an environment of tremendous discontent. But if you look at the way that the Republicans have been able to hold this coalition together, that's the reason, right? It comes across like it's a distraction away from their inability to address the cost of living crisis, but it's a distraction that is very violent. If you're a trans person, you are fearful of your future in this country. If you're an undocumented migrant, you're fearful of sending your children to school because you're worried that like ICE is going to kidnap them. That's an objectively violent environment. It's an objectively unstable environment that this administration has created. But the purpose of why they do that is because they treat entire swaths of the population, marginalized communities, some of the most vulnerable people in this country, as discardable, disposable. They can get away with doing violence towards them. Because they can get away with doing violence towards them simply as a message, simply to say like, oh, we are doing something.
Compared to just 41% of Democrats, about half that level, who think their own leaders get things done. Again, Democrats just don't think very highly of their party at this point, and that is why there's so much pressure on those leaders, in my mind, in Washington to actually do something that satisfies their base.
Add all of this up, what does it say about the view of the Democratic Party in general?
Yeah, I mean, here is a line from Donald Trump himself, actually. Look at that.
I thought it would be met with fury on the left. But they're sort of giving up, I must be honest with you. They've had it. They've had it with Trump. They've been after me for so many years now. Here we are. Here we are. Come to the White House anytime you'd like. No, they've given up.
We all need to not ignore the fact that Democrats also help ICE gain as much power as they have now, thanks to them refusing to address our needs like student loan forgiveness or debt relief. Now ICE is able to dangle it over everyone's heads like a shiny set of keys. Oh, for sure. They're saying that the left has given up. They're not even fighting any longer. He's saying that to a room full of generals. This is from the generals meeting that took place early this morning, where Pete Kegsbreth demanded every single general in the United States of America in this like unprecedented move come down, I think to Virginia, where him and Trump delivered this like rousing speech, you know?
A lot of bad people. But all over, that's been so popular. It's been very popular. I really thought that we were going to have to sort of fight it through. There's been no fight. I thought it would be met with.
I really thought that we were going to have some sort of fight it through. There's been no fight, he says. Now, of course, there has been a fight. But the reason why he doesn't think there's been a fight is because the fight has not been channeled by electeds. Okay, it's not been championed by any sort of representatives or any sort of leadership. There are some who have exhibited discontent at times, like Chris Van Hollen, and the actions that he took was a great example. and something that I think more Democrats should be doing. This is something that I talked about at the time, right? When he went down to El Salvador and demanded the return of Kilmar Abrega Garcia, that was fighting. That was good leadership. But when he says like the left is not fighting, from these guys' perspective, none of the major leaders of the Democratic Party are actually collectively making a big fuss about all of the awfulness that has been presented. All the awful shit that these guys are doing. And that's precisely the reason why Democrats' own base, their voters, people like yourself, your parents, your grandparents, they are also angry at the Democratic Party as well. Because you don't have to love the Democrats. I certainly don't. But they're the only game in town as it stands. And therefore, we have to use the Democratic Party. We have to use the elected representatives to put up a strong fight. Because they still, as elected representatives, have a tremendous ability to galvanize the rest of the public. And if you don't see them out there protesting alongside yourselves, you're not going to get the confidence necessary to put up an even stronger this administration. That's the reason why a lot of people are frustrated. We need to start seeing these electeds out in the fucking streets. Right now, it feels as though the electeds are disgusted with our demands. They think our demands are ridiculous. Oh, how dare they want us to do something? Republicans are in charge. What can we do? It's ridiculous. Be more like Brad Lander. Be more like Chris Van Hollen. Be more like Zoran Mamdani. Okay? Be less like Hakeem Jeffries or Cory Booker. We want more Cory Bush and less Cory Booker.
If you think your party has weak leaders, if you think your party can't get anything done, well, this is, I think, the real pressure facing Democrats at this particular point. Democrats who think their parties need major changes or more, look at this. 57% of Democrats say their party needs major changes or more, compared to just 43% who say minor or no changes. Again, very different than the Republican Party, where 21% of Republicans, only 21%, say their party needs major changes or more. Again,
Democrats look to those numbers and go, ooh, that means 21% of Republicans could be convinced to vote alongside the Democrat voting bloc. If only we just get more racist and more transphobic. Ooh, maybe we can get those guys on board. It's like, you're fucking